Hello, everybody, and welcome to WCNc Charlotte's Off the Clock with Carboni podcast. I am Nick Carboni, sports director at WCNc Charlotte, where you can watch me every weekday at 6 and 11, and now on Sunday nights as the Panthers get started up, and we'll be on before and after Sunday Night Football every single week, hoping for a big Panthers win over the Raiders this Sunday. This week's Off the Clock guest is the goalkeeper for the Charlotte Independents, Brandon Miller. Brandon grew up in Charlotte, and he's been playing for his hometown team for a few years now, and I think it's great that he's here right now in this moment. While the Independents were off because of the coronavirus pandemic, obviously our country has seen a lot of unrest and more social injustice, particularly against the black community. Brandon's helped the Charlotte Independents find its voice in their league and in our city through all of that. Now they're back on the field, 2 big wins last week, including one over rival North Carolina FC. Here is Off the Clock with Brandon Miller, but of course we start with some time on the clock. Okay, Brandon, a little time left on the clock, so I'll get it started. What is the sport you would be a pro in besides soccer?
Basketball.
What's your pregame superstition, or any superstition?
I got to put my left sock on before my right sock, always.
And if you don't?
I just don't feel right. Sometimes I reach for the right sock and then I catch myself and I put the left sock on. I just stop and put the left sock on first. I don't know why. It's been like that forever.
Well, you definitely did the last few nights, at least. We'll get into that. Last place you got takeout in Charlotte?
Last place I got takeout, Optimus Hall, the pizza place. I think it's called Ava.
Yeah, I just had their sushi stuff, but the pizza looked good there.
Yeah, my girlfriend and I love the pizza place there.
All right, let's get into it, man. A couple of really good wins for you guys the last week or so. You beat your rival, North Carolina FC, and a shutout before that. What's been working for the Independents the last couple games?
Honestly, it's just been more of a collective effort from everyone putting in. We have the talent. It's just on the day when the energy and the belief matches that talent. I think there's not a lot of teams in the league that can really beat us. And so in Memphis, I think we put in a strong performance. We didn't come out as solid as we had wanted, but after the first 15, 20 minutes, we started to get it together, and we're always a confident team on the ball. And it just, when you get opportunities early and you put those opportunities away early, it makes things a lot easier. And the same thing in the NCFC game. We came out with a lot of great energy, put the pressure on them early, and they couldn't handle that pressure. And we, put a couple of goals away in the first 20 minutes, and it makes things a lot easier.
What does it feel like for the Independents to beat North Carolina FC?
It's huge. It's the first time in the league since I've been here, and I think in the league since the Independents have been around. And so it always felt like a big brother, little brother situation where we were just getting beat up by our rivals year after year. But finally, we were able to get over that hump, and this year we feel confident that we're a really good team that can compete with anyone. So to take it to them, especially the way we did on Saturday night, was huge.
I know it's a collective effort, but I want to talk about you the last few matches a little bit. Clean sheet 2 matches ago, and then another solid performance against North Carolina FC. What's kind of been clicking for you specifically to those 2 games?
I don't really think it's been those 2 games. I feel confident with where I'm at. Training wise, I feel good going in every day, pushing myself and focusing on getting better. And that's been translating over to games. Obviously there's been a couple performances where we've let in a few too many goals, and we never really want to get scored on at all. But personally, I just feel like I'm in a good place where I feel confident with my distribution. I feel confident in my positioning, and just overall, I feel confident as a goalkeeper. And so that's been showing a lot more in games.
What has it been like this year? I mean, I talked to you guys like right after your first game in March, and you were getting set to play at home, and then everything goes down. So from your perspective, I'm sure you watched a lot of the stuff on TV, domino effect with the basketball tournaments. When did it kind of hit that, okay, we might not have a season or we might not play for a while?
Honestly, it took a little while. I think in the beginning, everyone thought, all right, this may be like a 2-week, 3-week, maybe a month type of thing. And then we'll get back to playing. And then, I guess late March, early April, when we started realizing, hey, this may be a long-term thing. And there's just a lot of uncertainty there. Are we going to have a season this year? What's it going to look like? In the USO, with our Players Association being so young, we're going through a collective bargaining agreement while also trying to deal with the pandemic. So it was a lot to handle in a short amount of time. But credit to the guys for staying focused, and everyone, doing what they can off the field to stay fit and stay sharp. And I think we came back at a pretty good level.
You guys have played in front of fans, I think, at some venues, but not at home. What has it been like without fans, without Jack's Militia, and trying to create your own energy and keep some semblance of that home field advantage?
I think that would be the biggest thing. Credit to the guys is being able to keep that high energy in games when we don't have the fans there to push us. It's more so, we're pushing ourselves, we're pushing each other. It's definitely different, like being able to communicate a lot easier. You don't have the fans yelling and making it hard to give out instruction and things like that. But like you said, it's hard to really find the energy sometimes, that 70th minute when you need to push. And you're in an empty stadium where it's just hollow. It just sounds coming around. So it's definitely different, but like I always say, I'd rather be out there playing than not playing. So I think you just got to adapt.
How do you kind of stay engaged with the fans, especially the loyal supporters during this time when they can't be at matches?
Honestly, I personally, and I've been here 3 years now, and I know some of the supporters kind of off the field. We've been able to meet up and do certain things. Like I always want to stay engaged with the fans. So through social media, and mainly right now, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, just seeing, they congratulate us and they try to keep us up to date with what they're doing. And that's the biggest thing is staying engaged with the fans. So obviously we can't do it as much in person. I'll randomly run into people, whether it's out grabbing food or something like that. But mainly social media, just trying to. They've been really good about pushing a lot of the stuff that we've been doing off the field. So that's one of the big reasons we've stayed in constant communication.
And how did you spend that idle time, but also balancing, the fact that you're a professional athlete that had to stay ready in case the season did come back?
I read a lot of books, I'll say that. Read probably like 20, 25 books in the past 4 or 5 months. But, it's trying to keep that same routine, working out in the mornings, doing what I can to stay fit in the mornings. And then afternoon, I dedicate a lot to what I was reading and keeping up with my business stuff. So it did not too much change. It just you didn't have games.
What's the one book that stands out of the 20 plus?
Well, I would say Phil Jackson's 11 Rings, really good. That's probably the book I read. It was probably like 350 pages, something like that. But I ran through that book pretty quickly because I just couldn't put it down. I thought that was a really good book. And I read a book, Harvard Business Review book on leadership that really piqued my interest.
Awesome. Well, a lot happened, obviously between the time the season shut down and that it got restarted. When you returned to a professional team and league in this environment, what was important to you and your teammates as you did come back to the field in terms of, not totally shutting out what's going on in this country right now and what's going on to these communities?
I think it's similar to the balance that you always have. You want to be as engaged as possible on the field. When you step into the locker room, the focus is on soccer and getting better as a soccer player so that you can improve and your team can improve. But it's impossible to ignore what's going on in the world. And so kind of just compartmentalize for those few hours that you're at the stadium, focus on what needs to take care or you need to take care of on the field. And then when we leave the stadium, that's when you start to focus on other things that impact you individually, impact your community, impact the world. So it's tough to focus sometimes when there's so much going on in the world. But that's part of being a professional. There's always going to be something going on, whether it's in your personal life or in the larger population where things are affecting other people that you may feel like affects you as well. So you just have to figure out how you can shut all that out for that hour and a half, 2 hours where you're on the field in the stadium and doing what you love.
How hard is that to do sometimes? I mean, we see NFL players talk about, just not being able to feel like they can practice. NBA teams not feeling like they can, take the floor for a playoff game. Is it hard to kind of separate that and compartmentalize that just as a human being sometimes?
Yeah, it's extremely tough. I mean, just the other week, after I'd seen what was going on in like the NBA, the WNBA, them sitting out games, and just with everything going on, I felt like it was all just coming to a head, and I just wasn't sure whether playing soccer at this moment was the right decision for me. But ultimately, I stepped on the field and we played. But it's sometimes it's hard. We're human beings, and things affect us, whether we want to acknowledge it or not. Things affect us, and I'm kind of the person where I'm going to acknowledge, like, I'm not always in the best mood. I'm not always in the best headspace, and so sometimes I just have to, sit back. Like, I sat in my locker for 20 minutes, didn't really say anything to anybody, just sat there to myself and trying to talk myself into getting that focus I need to perform at a high level.
How important is it for you guys as a team? Obviously you had these conversations before you guys came back in July, and then obviously we saw the NBA and NFL have them just recently. But have you guys tried to continue those conversations amongst each other in the locker room about what's going on and what you guys can do as a team?
I would say it's more so a lot of our team's focus right now is more so on soccer. But there's definitely guys in the locker room who are going above and beyond to continue those conversations and to continue the actions that are necessary to make the changes that we want. So it's there's definitely guys in the locker room who want to continue to do the things that we've been doing. So those are conversations we'll have. It's probably not as often as it should be, but the conversations are still there.
And last question about that is you see athletes all over the country in these major leagues becoming individuals that people look to during these times. How do you feel about that as an athlete, as kind of being looked to see what you have to say about something, to see what your voice, to see how you're using your voice in these situations?
I would definitely say it's something that, I'd say over the past 6 months, I guess, is definitely started to grow for me. Me realizing that my voice has a bit more impact than I thought it may have. And I'm more so a leader, not just on my team, but in this league. And I can really affect change, not just in my community, but in this league as well. And so it's motivating to see other athletes in the NBA, the MLS, MLB, whatever league it is, step up and use their voices to like really affect the change that they want to see in these communities. And so I figure if they can do it, why not myself? That's the kind of person I want to be. I want to be someone who speaks out for those who may not have the voice or the platform that I have. So that's just something I'm going to continue to do.
One thing I've seen you post about a little bit and put out there is an organization called Heal Charlotte. Can you tell me what that's about and what your involvement is with them?
So Heal Charlotte is a nonprofit organization based in Charlotte. Obviously, that they work a lot in a lot of these underserved communities. And I found out about them, on Juneteenth. Actually, I went out to this rally that they had uptown, and Greg Jackson, the founder of the organization, he was speaking at the rally, and I up until that point I had been searching for organizations that I wanted to work with locally, and I think it was just great timing. I heard him speak at the rally, and he started talking about educating the youth and working with the youth and a lot of the underserved communities. And I mean, immediately I was like, that's an organization that I want to be a part of. I want to work with. So I reached out to Greg and told him just, who I was. I played for the Independence. I'd love to get myself and my team involved with what you're doing. And it's pretty much grown from there. We've started out with raising money every game to donate to Heal Charlotte and their $10 million affordable housing initiative. And then we started monthly soccer clinics that just started up in August. We had our first one a couple weeks ago that went really well. And I mean, shout out to the sponsors who've helped us out there. The independents were great, and bringing in Dick's Sporting Goods and providing cleats and food for the kids that came to the clinic. So we're hoping to grow that as well every single month. But those are the main things that we're doing. It's basically, you know, an organization that has a massive impact in the community, and that's essentially what I want to do. A community that I grew up in, you know, Charlotte's hometown, and I want to be able to give back to the city that helped me so much growing up. So I think a lot of the stuff that they're doing is right in line with what I want to do, and so that's why I've been so adamant about working with them.
What was it like to see that relationship that was born in just June, you know, and then kids are walking on the field for that clinic in August?
It was honestly really exciting just to see their faces and see how excited they were to, you know, come out and just play soccer, have fun. It was, you know, maybe a 2-hour clinic, but in that time we got to know the kids and got to play around with them and teach them a little bit of something. And, you know, they actually, there are some really skilled players out there that taught me a couple of things as well. But it's nice to see that we can, you know, in such a short time, we can build something that can be such a long-term partnership, and it can benefit the community so much.
Like I said at the beginning, we're lucky to have Brandon as a pro athlete in Charlotte, from Charlotte, during these times. But as we move along here, we get into Brandon's upbringing in the game of soccer, which started with his father. So I saw you were born in Toledo based on your Wilmington bio. How did you end up in Charlotte, and what was your kind of soccer journey growing up? Did it start here in Charlotte, and what are your first memories about playing the sport?
So I started in soccer back in Toledo when I was about 5 years old. My dad got me started in soccer. And unfortunately, he passed away when I was 6. Mm-hmm. And so that's the main reason we left Ohio. I just wanted to get out of Ohio, and my mom picked Charlotte. So we ended up in Charlotte. And from there, I just kept playing soccer. I think he's one of the main reasons I kept playing soccer when I was younger, just because it was something that he had gotten me into, and I wanted to, you know, kind of do that for him. But it was also something I was good at, and I just kept getting better and better, and I was having fun. And so I just kept doing it. And, you know, I started out in youth clubs, like local rec clubs in this area, down in Pineville, and kind of just went from there to what was South Charlotte Soccer Association, but is what is now Charlotte Soccer Academy. And I played with them pretty much my entire youth career, from like probably 7th grade all the way up until I went to Wilmington.
Usually when I talk to a goalkeeper about when they started in that position, it was like, that's what I wanted to do, or no, coach said you're going to do that, and then you kind of grew into it. What was your journey with that position?
It was definitely something I wanted to do. I realized at a pretty young age that I just wasn't a big fan of running. And so I just decided, hey, I'll go in goal. I was decently athletic, and just made sense. I did it a few times, and I just figured, hey, I'll stick with this, and, you know, it worked out pretty well.
Got Country Day, great success there, deep playoff runs, and then you go to UNC Wilmington, and you make a handful of starts each year, it looks like. I don't know if you were behind somebody that was really good, and then you pop out your senior year, make all your starts, or start all the games, you're all conference. But I want to know what that time was like when you were kind of waiting to be the every game starter, and what you kind of learned about yourself during those couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, that was a tough, I'd say, 3 years for me, because I was so used to, at the youth level, I was used to playing every single game. You know, I was the number one, I was the man. And then I get to college, and I think that's going to continue, and unfortunately it doesn't. You know, I went in, and there was a sophomore in front of me, highly recruited goalkeeper, very good. And, you know, I did well, but I just wasn't prepared for the college level quite yet. And so that first year I played 5 games. Second year, you know, another 5 games. I felt like I was ready, but, you know, again, sometimes you have to wait. And so it was pretty frustrating. I mean, I had a lot of conversations with the coaching staff just about what I could do, and the main thing was how I could be a good teammate, because you know, that's not something you're used to, it's hard to have the right attitude. And so I found myself a lot of times being pretty negative with myself, with my teammates, just because you know, I felt like I should be playing. I felt like I deserved it. But that was probably the biggest thing I learned from that, is just how my energy affects other people and how to be a good teammate. And so those were 3 years that were necessary for me. So like when I came into senior year, I could pass that down to the other goalkeepers, the younger players who maybe weren't getting the time that they wanted, and just try to teach them how to be a good teammate and be impactful for everyone.
I mean, we see it in college football. I mean, goalkeeper is kind of like quarterback. If you're behind somebody, you might leave, you might transfer. Was that ever something you thought about? And are you glad? I would assume you're glad you stuck it out there.
Yeah, I'd say after my freshman year, I actually thought about transferring back to Charlotte. But I realized I didn't want to come back to Charlotte. I didn't want to come back home. I was happy I loved Wilmington as a city. It was a great place to go to college. And I didn't want to quit. I felt like I was good enough to play at that level. And I think other people knew I was good enough to play. Sometimes you're just in a position where there doesn't need to be a change, right? So, sometimes you're sitting behind a player who's really good. That doesn't mean you're not really good. It just means that there's only one position for two people. And so I think it was a test of character for me, and I didn't want to fail that test. So I stuck it out, and I was really happy I did.
Yeah, all conference year, tons of clean sheets in that season. When did becoming a professional soccer player kind of get on your radar? Was it that year, or is that something that you thought you could do before that?
That was the main reason I went to Wilmington. I remember when I was 18, or my senior year of high school, I sat down with my youth club coach and we had discussed potentially going overseas because he had some connections over there. He was a former professional over there, but I just didn't think that was something I was ready for. And so it was always something that was on my mind, but that started to wane a little bit when I, played 5 games first year, second year, played 5 games, third year, played 5 games. So I remember a conversation I had with our assistant coach my junior year, and he was asking me, do you still want to play professional soccer? And I was like, yeah, but at this point, it doesn't really look likely, because I wasn't playing, I wasn't getting any playing time, and I only had 1 year to kind of prove myself. But luckily, I stayed focused and was able to have a pretty successful senior year, which catapulted me into, playing in the USL.
Yeah, you signed, was it pretty immediately after your college season was over? And what do you know now about being a professional soccer player that maybe you didn't know back then?
Yeah, I signed probably like 2 weeks after our season ended, and I was really naive back then. I just saw a contract. I said I was going to get paid, and I was like, all right, let's do it. Had no clue, about the length of the season. Had no clue just about the grind of a season. So I'd say the biggest thing for me, what I know now versus what I didn't really know then, is like just the amount of extra work that you have to put in order to excel as a professional. There's so many guys who can come to practice, perform pretty well and then leave, but that's not what's going to get you, to excel in this league or get you to the next level. So I would say that's something that I realized later in my career that I wish I would have known earlier in my career. Then I think that would have given me the confidence that I have now, maybe back then. But hindsight's 2020.
Well, you certainly figured it out. 2015 Goalkeeper of the Year. I believe you guys won the championship that season as well. Take me through that year. What was that year like for you? And kind of looking back on those accomplishments, what's your perspective on it now?
It's funny because that year, honestly, I wasn't even supposed to be the starter for my team. I was originally supposed to be the backup, but for some paperwork issues for a guy who had come over from Scotland, and he had some paperwork issues the first, I think it was a couple of weeks of the season, so I ended up starting, and I ended up doing well the first couple games, and I was doing well, so there wasn't really a need to change, and the rest is kind of history. But I think that kind of speaks to what I've always tried to portray or try to show about myself, is like just sticking it out. And I was there from 2012. I played 2 games. 2013 I played 1 game. 2014 I didn't play any games, and going into 2015 I was set to be a backup. That's not really the ideal trajectory you want as a professional, any professional athlete, but I would say I was pretty resilient, and it paid off that year. And I was able to perform well, win Goalkeeper of the Year, win a championship, and really have a great year that really pushed me on to better things.
Single season record for the USL in shutouts with 13 and goals against average just a tick over half a goal a game. Are those records still standing?
The shutout record's not, but the goals against average is, yeah.
How much do you hold on to those records and hope they don't get broken?
Honestly, I'm not really that. I knew the shutout record would get broken simply because back then we only played.
Right.
Like I only played 21 games that year. Now goalkeepers play 30 plus games, so I knew it would be broken. But I'm honestly not really that big on the records. It's more so the championship for me. Like you can take the records away, but I'm always going to be a USL champion, and that's something that I really pride myself in.
Come back to Charlotte. I know when you were at Wilmington, you didn't want to come back home, but what went into you coming back and playing for the Independents here in your home city?
Honestly, I wanted to come back. I actually wanted to come back in 2000. I think it was 2015, but I was under contract in Rochester, and so I had to stay there. But I came back mainly because I had bounced around to a couple of different teams, and I felt like it was time to come home, really settle down a little bit, get somewhere where I can stay for a few years, focus on things on the field and off the field, and really establish myself. And I felt like Charlotte would be the perfect place. I could be around my family, play in front of family and friends, and it would be a good transition for me. And I think it's worked out pretty well.
I think my first dealings with you, your capacity was helping me get interviews with some of the players. So how many different hats are you wearing over there?
So that was I was doing a little bit of work in the front office because honestly, post-career, I want to look into moving into a front office role somewhere. And so I felt like it was a big conversation I had in the off season with the front office was, hey, I want to, step into a role where I can start learning as much as possible at the front office from every perspective: marketing, sponsorships, game day operations, and community relations, which is one of the main things I was doing was working on appearances for players and trying to connect the Independents with the Charlotte community. And it was going pretty well until COVID, obviously. But that's the main reason why I wanted to step into the front office, because long term, I think that's something that I want to do.
Excellent. Just want to go back real quick to something you mentioned about your dad, and he was kind of the reason you stuck with soccer. Do you still kind of view him as the catalyst for this relationship you've had lifelong with the game? And how often do you kind of think about that moment and him getting you started?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would say, I mean, there's been times in my career where I thought that, it may be time to move on. But, it's like I guess I'm trying to prove it to myself. I want to prove it to my family. But I also want to prove it to him, like it was worth it, And you just always want to make your parents proud, and whether he's here or not, I think he's still able to see what I'm doing and hopefully be proud.
Well, Brandon, good luck Saturday. I know we all wish you continued success, and it's great to have you on and great to have you in Charlotte as a great representative of the city and one of our best pro athletes. So thanks for joining us.
No, I appreciate that. Thanks for having me on.
Brandon and the Independents looking to make it 3 in a row Saturday night against Birmingham Legion FC. You can catch most Independents games on ESPN3. Thank you to Brandon. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you on TV Sunday night after the game on WCNc Charlotte.